Today's episode is sponsored by Live Good, and let me just tell you guys, okay? Getting my kids, Theo and Emmy, to take their vitamins, it used to feel impossible. It was the drama of it all. It was fighting them, arguing with them. At one point, I even tried to disguise it in string cheese. It was just the drama. But recently, I got my hands on Live Good's children multivitamins, and it has now been a total game changer. Now, I chose them because I wanted something high quality that my kids would take without all the fuss and all of the drama of it all. And since we started using Live Good children's multivitamins, it's been a huge win for our mornings. My kids love the taste. I love knowing that they're getting the essential nutrients that they need to, grow and stay healthy. And I literally just pop it next to their breakfast. They grab it and it's oh, it's so easy. It's so easy. Why has it been so hard the last several years? And we all know how important vitamins are for our kids, right? But so many brands charge these ridiculous prices and they're packed with unnecessary ingredients, all of the things. And Live Good is different. Their products are premium, clean, affordable. They're formulated by natural health experts. And because they cut out the middleman, we get the highest quality at the best prices. Seriously, Live Good has made keeping my kids healthy so much easier, and it doesn't break the bank. So are you ready? You ready to give them a try? You definitely need to. Go to livegood.com/10tolife for 10% off your first order and take the first step toward better health for your family. You will thank me later, guys. I'm telling you, it is so much easier with my kids. We are now in a peaceful house. And they take their vitamins and I have such comfort and peace of mind knowing that. So go to livegood.com/10tolife for 10% off your first order. Hey everybody, welcome back to an all new episode of 10 to Life with me, Annie Elise. I hope you are ready because we have a doozy of a case to talk about today. So here I am, super comfy cozy, ready to break it down for you. If you're brand new, checking out the channel for the first time, welcome. What we do here is basically talk true crime all the time, all these cases, and I just sit here on my chair and deliver them like I'm talking to my friend. So I'm here today, nice and cozy, and ready to talk with you about this case. Now, just for a moment, close your eyes. Not if you're driving, but if you're not driving, close your eyes. Close your eyes for a moment. And if somebody close to you, a good friend or maybe a family member, suddenly went missing, would you notice? Because most people would say, yeah, duh, of course. Annie, obviously. But today's story is about someone who went missing, and apparently nobody noticed for almost 2 whole weeks. And one of the strange things about this case is that it's hard to say exactly what happened during that time. But many people think that somebody attacked her and then covered it up so perfectly, so flawlessly, that nobody realized it until it was far too late. So guys, let's jump right in. Maciejewska was 42 years old in 2017, and she lived with her husband and her young son in Malvern, Pennsylvania, which that's really just a suburb of Philadelphia with this big feeling of community. So much so that they have this huge Memorial Day parade every year. They've been doing it literally nonstop since 1869. It's literally the longest that any town has gone having a Memorial Day parade every year without ever missing a single year, but community is very important to them, and that might give you a sense of what kind of place this is. It's where you and your family can really just come stand on the corner of Main Street, watch some floats go by, and feel that sense of, hometown pride, if you will, but also still having that feeling like you're part of the whole Philadelphia massive area. Now, the point is that Malvern felt like one of those places right out of a Hallmark movie. And if Malvern's a picture-perfect suburb, then Anna was the girl next door. She just fit in. She had this round face, almost like she hadn't lost some of her baby fat yet, even in her 40s. She kept her hair dirty blonde, about chin length. She had dimples whenever she smiled. But if you're thinking, okay, well, it sounds like Anna was your typical small-town American girl, then I've got a huge surprise for you, because she actually was originally from Poland. She grew up there, and I also know that she had one sister. Now, somewhere along the way, while she was growing up, Anna fell in love. At one point before she finished college, Anna started dating a guy, and then the two of them became pretty serious. Serious enough, in fact, that when he got accepted into a grad school in the United States, Anna decided to move in with him. Now, this didn't happen right away. The boyfriend came to the US in 1996, and it took Anna a year later, until 1997, to also move. I'm not sure if it's just that it took her that long to get all of her paperwork set up for the visa, things like that, or if maybe she wanted to finish undergrad first, but I do know that when she was 22 years old, in 1997, she made her way to Kentucky. She picked up her whole life and moved to a brand new country just for love, just trying to make things work with her boyfriend, the person that she had fallen in love with. While she was in the United States, Anna went to the University of Louisville. She was studying mathematics, and a particular kind where you literally try to figure out how likely certain kinds of problems and risks are. It's actually how insurance companies decide how much to charge people and how much to pay out. You know, this disaster is, say, 50% likely to happen, but the other one is rare. It only happens 1 out of every 10,000 times. You know, different scenarios like this. So Anna's job was to figure out all of those numbers. And I assume that that must have meant that she really liked math, because I honestly cannot imagine choosing to study something like that otherwise. But then after graduation, Anna had to make another choice, because now her boyfriend was moving to California. However, she had a job offer in Westchester, Pennsylvania. That's about a 20-minute drive from Malvern. And this time around, she decided not to uproot her whole life for a man a second time. So she broke up with her boyfriend and she moved to Westchester. Now, I'm not sure why she decided to choose her career over love this, second time around. I don't know if she was sick of making sacrifices, and if maybe she was annoyed that her boyfriend was once again putting her in this same position. Maybe their relationship wasn't as strong as it was before, and maybe it didn't feel like it was going to be endgame, so she didn't want to uproot her life and dismantle her career. I don't really know. I'm just speculating. But I will say that it wasn't very normal for Anna to stand up for herself like this. I mean, not very often, at least, unfortunately. She was just not a strong person, and that's not just my opinion. Pretty much everyone who knew her described her as somebody who was kind of a bit of a pushover, like she cracked under pressure. She wanted the people around her to like her. She wanted to be easygoing and friendly. So that meant that it was hard for her sometimes to stand up for herself, and because of that, she would get taken advantage of. But she did manage to break up with that boyfriend, and then Anna bought a townhouse that was really close to her new job, right in town in Westchester. She continued her work as this, ratio statistic mathematician. She was actually really good at it, and she showed up every single day. She never missed any little details. She was exactly the kind of reliable, predictable, hard worker that you would want handling numbers and doing heavy math, right? So sometime in the mid-2000s, when Anna would have been around her mid-20s, she went on a ski trip. And when she was there, she met Alan Gould. Now, from pretty much the moment that the two of them met, Anna thought that Alan was great, amazing, basically. He was handsome, he was sweet, and according to Alan's mom, if you ever asked Anna to list some of Alan's flaws, she wouldn't be able to come up with a single one. She basically thought that he was the greatest guy ever and walked on water. So they dated for a while, and then they got married in 2006. And pretty much everyone who knew Anna and Alan agreed that they were like couple goals. Anytime anyone spent some time around the two of them, it was just so clear that they were so happy. They were so in love. They just doted on one another. They ended up having their first child, Andrew, around 2013. And Anna absolutely adored her son. And I know that that probably goes without saying, or at least, you'd hope that it would. But the point is that she loved Andrew so, so much, even if maybe motherhood wasn't a completely natural fit for her. And I say that because Andrew's birth was right around the time when things started to go a little south for Alan and Anna. A lot of the time when I talk about bad relationships, there's usually an issue of jealousy or possessiveness. One person wants their partner to be their whole world and, they lose their mind if their husband has female friends or if the wife hangs out with other men, things like that. Well, for Anna and Alan, there was jealousy. But it wasn't about either of them being afraid that their partner was going to cheat on them or leave them. It was actually much deeper than that. Anna was jealous of Andrew, her son. She felt like Alan was just so invested in Andrew, all about him, all of the time, and putting her on the back burner. She felt like he was more focused on being a good dad than being a good husband, and Anna was starting to feel like her needs just were not being met. Now, as a mother, I can tell you, when you have a kid, they have to come first. Period. The end of story. They can't physically take care of themselves, especially when they're really young, like Andrew was. But even though it is important to take care of your kids, you also have to try to find that balance of taking care of yourself and your partner. You don't want to just stop being a human being with your own wants and needs just because you become a father or a mother. But trust me, I know it's tough. It took me years to even find a semblance of a balance, which I haven't even mastered yet. And it can be very difficult. So you gotta, figure out what works for you and try to find a way to strike a balance. But still, Anna and Alan tried to do what they could to make things work. They built a home together, and I'm not speaking metaphorically here. They literally designed a house and had it built. Anna wanted the house to be a European style because it reminded her of her home in Poland. And it took a really long time to get everything set up just right. But by the mid-2010s, they were living there. And it was very new, it was very fresh, it was very exciting. But from the sounds of things, the relationship was still in need of some fixing up of its own. Then in 2016, Anna got pregnant again. However, this pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, which had to just be absolutely devastating. I don't know if there's anything that hurts worse than losing a child, but losing a child that you're expecting and hoping for might come close to that kind of pain too. So the point is, Anna in all of this was just not in a good place. She was grieving. She was still in this rough patch with her husband. And from what I've been able to read in my research, he just wasn't really there for her. She still felt like she was a distant number 2 on Alan's priority list, coming in far second after Andrew, their son. And it's worth remembering she was also living in a country that wasn't her home country. So usually when you're dealing with something that's just seriously devastating, you can go to your family for support. You can surround yourself with all of the people who have always known you and just care about you. But that wasn't really an option for Anna. If she wanted to talk to her mom or her dad, she needed to wait for a time when it wasn't the middle of the night in Poland, and she had to keep track of the time zones, and you just try to call them, then Zoom them and figure it out. But it still just was Zoom or over the phone, and that takes away that human element, the hugging, the nurturing, the feeling. It's something, but it's disconnected. She only saw her parents in person about once a year. She made a point to fly back whenever she could, but one trip to Europe per year is a lot. It's a lot of money, a lot of stress, and also a lot of planning. But it's also basically nothing when you're close to your family, and that's the only time that you get to actually be around them. And I have to say, Anna was so close to her family. So that once-a-year trip was not enough for her. Not at all. So in 2017, it was really important to Anna to be back in Poland for her dad's 80th birthday. This was on March 30th. She wanted to be there and celebrate the big day with him, the huge milestone, and she also wanted it to be a surprise. So Anna planned everything with her mom. But she also told her, don't tell Dad I'm coming. Don't spoil it. The idea was that Anna would come, and of course, she would bring Andrew, who was 3 years old by this time, and he barely knew his grandparents, so this was something she was really looking forward to. She hadn't quite settled on whether Alan would also come with her or not, or if he had to stay home and handle work and all of the things, but she knew that she was going to bring her son. So she was kind of planning it in a firm way, but also still pretty loosely. In fact, that even a few days before the flight, things were very much up in the air. She literally texted her mom on March 28th, just 2 days before her dad's birthday. She said that there was some kind of work commitment and she wasn't able to get out of it. So she wasn't going to be able to fly home after all. She had to cancel the trip at almost the literal last minute. Now, this was really weird. Anna said she couldn't go to Poland because of work, even though she had already gotten permission from her boss to have the entire week off. And again, this birthday was extremely important to her. So you would think that she might tell her boss that she was going to take the flight and that he would have to just work around her absence, that he already approved the time off, she can go. But remember, Anna was a people pleaser. She didn't like to say no. She didn't want to rock the boat. She didn't want to stand up for herself. It was better to just kind of make everybody else happy. Which you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, that boss then sounds like a jerk. They changed their mind last minute, then decided not to let Anna go. Now she has to cancel this super important family trip last minute. But no, that's not exactly what happened. See, Anna still had the week off. Nobody in the office was expecting her to come to work. And she also didn't come in at all for that entire week. She wasn't staying in Pennsylvania to take care of things for her job, nothing like that. In fact, most of her coworkers didn't even realize that Anna had canceled the Poland trip. From their perspective, she had taken the time off. She also wasn't in the office during that time off, so she must have been in Poland. It all made sense. Nobody was worried about her or anything else. They wouldn't need to worry until she was going to be back in the office, which she was supposed to be back in office on Monday, April 3rd. But right before then, she sent a text to her boss saying that she needed to take a whole nother week off. She said that she would now be back on the 10th. But this was only text message. This wasn't a phone conversation, and the boss didn't confirm this with Anna in real time. They were just texting. It was a little weird for Anna to call out for a whole other week with no notice because she was usually very responsible, very big on doing her job, being great at her job, being a star. But this sudden now week-long time off request was kind of the thing that started to raise some eyebrows. Except also, so far as her boss knew, Anna had just been in Poland for an entire week. So they probably wrote this off as her just being seriously jet-lagged, maybe needing a vacation from her vacation. Who knows what the truth is. Maybe they thought that a flight got delayed and it was going to take a little longer to get back. These things happen, so who really knows? The point is, they didn't know exactly why Anna needed to take another week off. But they also weren't going to tell her no, so they told her, go ahead, take the time, and we will see you the following Monday. So let me set the scene here. Anna was supposed to be in Poland with her parents, but she canceled it at the absolute last minute. Her parents thought that she was working, yet the people that she was working with thought that she was in Poland, and nobody was comparing notes saying, wait, well, where is she really supposed to be, and where is she? So eventually, her parents did start getting worried regardless. First, because Anna never actually called her dad on his birthday, which was weird. Super weird. I mean, it's one thing to not be able to fly out because of work stuff, but no matter how busy you are with your job, usually you can find 5 minutes to hop quickly on the phone and say something like, happy birthday, or I'll call you later for an important chat, but something like that, especially for such a huge milestone, right? I mean, it was weird. So Anna's parents called her and texted her, just trying to figure out what was going on, why she was suddenly so out of touch. Now, the house where Anna and Alan lived didn't have great cell service, and this was something that everybody knew. As a general rule, Anna didn't answer cell phone calls at home very often because, they wouldn't really go through a decent chunk of the time. So instead of calling Anna's cell phone, her parents were also trying her home phone landline, trying to figure out what was going on. But then, during those calls, Anna texted them. Now, the texts were in Polish, but translated, they basically said, Daddy, wishing you a happy birthday. We love you. Anna, Alan, and Andrew. Now, again, I don't know how accurate that translation is because I don't speak Polish, but I did the best that I could. And you know who else didn't speak Polish? Whoever sent those text messages. Because you know how sometimes you can see something that somebody else wrote on social media or a sign in a store or whatever it is, and you can just tell that maybe English isn't that person's first language? And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. It's so difficult to learn a new language. That's why I literally never have, and most people aren't ever going to get it perfect. But there are sometimes certain mistakes through it when people speak that language primarily where you can notice them. Something that a native speaker would pick up on, but somebody who is not a native speaker would, never really know that they missed. So that was the deal with Anna's text messages. The things that she said to her parents were just off in a way where a native Polish speaker would never say those things. But an English speaker who was still learning Polish may talk that way. Or alternatively, if someone was using a service like Google Translate and they didn't know the language enough to correct the weirdness that Google always, throws in there, that might create a message that's wrong in this particular way. And just in case we need a reminder, Polish was not Anna's second language. It was her primary language. It's what she had grown up with.
Anya didn't write this message.
So right away, her parents were like, okay, something isn't right here. It does not smell right. Something is wrong. It was her phone number for sure, and the person who signed the text signed it as being from Anna, but it couldn't be her. It had to be somebody pretending to be her. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you that just made her parents even more freaked out. They were like, okay, we have to get a hold of Anna now. We cannot let this slide. So they got to calling more and more, just not stopping. And finally, one day, which was literal days after the last time they had talked to her live on the phone, not just over texts, somebody finally answered the phone. But it wasn't Anna. It was her husband, Alan. And he said that the reason Anna hadn't been talking to anyone or even going to work was all because she was sick, and she was now still too sick to even talk to her parents or just to reassure them that she was okay. But Alan also said that he thought that she might be feeling better by Monday, so they should try her again then. But it was weird, right? And I think it's fair to say and safe to say that nobody's going to just accept something like that on faith alone, right? If you're already worried that a loved one has basically stopped talking to you, and then you hear their husband say, don't worry about it, she'll call you on Monday, are you going to sit around patiently and wait for Monday? Probably not, of course not. But on the other hand, what are you supposed to do? And what are you going to do from a whole other country? It's not like her parents could just hop in the car and go check on Anna themselves. Obviously not. Now, they must have thought that Alan was acting very suspicious. But since they didn't have a whole lot of options, they did what he asked them to do. They waited for Monday, and then they called back. Now, to set the scene, this Monday is now April 10th, so that's almost 2 weeks since she sent that weird text in broken Polish, or at least since somebody had sent that text. 2 weeks since the last time they actually had Anna on the line and could hear her voice and know that she was okay and alive. That's how long her parents had been trying to get a hold of her. But once again, Anna did not pick up the phone when they called. It was Alan again. But her parents were like, okay, we waited. We now want to talk to our daughter. Now. And that's when Alan said that actually Anna was missing. Which, shocker, but not really though, right? So according to Alan, Anna had been fine as of that morning. All that time she had taken off work, all those weird texts that didn't have correct Polish, according to him, that was nothing to worry about. She had been home the entire time. She was okay. Everything was normal. The first time that Alan says that he realized that something was off with Anna was on that Monday morning, so earlier that day. He said that this was supposed to be Anna's first day back in the office after being off for close to 2 weeks. And you might think that she had been excited about getting back into the old routine, getting back to normal, going back to work, but instead, she was just being really slow about getting ready. But this was not the day to run late, not only because, again, Anna was coming back after being away for so long, but also because there was a really important meeting that she was supposed to be at first thing in the morning. So Anna was worried that she was going to be late to that, and she was rushing around, panicking, just flustered. And Alan's exact words was that she left in a panic. According to Alan, she ended up driving off in her car, a 2011 navy blue Audi A4, and that was the last that he had seen of her. Now, I don't know exactly what time it was when Alan was on the phone with Anna's parents. I'm assuming it was toward the end of the day, maybe even the evening or even the nighttime, because at the time that they were talking, it was well after the time when Anna should have been home from work. It was very unusual for her to still be away from the house at this time of night. And Alan told her parents that it had him worried. So of course her parents were like, okay, well what did the police say when you reported this, right? But get this, which seriously, brace yourself because this is very messed up. Alan said he hadn't reported Anna as missing yet because he had been too busy, that he just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Well, unlike Alan, her parents weren't messing around. They weren't having it. So they called the police to say that they thought that their daughter was missing. But what they got in response from the detectives shocked them because they said, we already know, which was weird because Alan hadn't reported her as missing. But see, as it turned out, Anna had not made it to work at all that day. She also hadn't called or texted anybody to ask for more time off. So for the past 2 weeks, everyone at the office had been just willing to believe that she was on this very long vacation. But now for her to just no-show on her first day back, it wasn't like her. So that morning, not long after Anna was supposed to come into the office, her coworkers called the police to ask for a welfare check. And at their request, some officers had driven out to Anna's house to see what was going on. But when they knocked on the door, nobody came out. The house was empty. There was no Anna, but also no Alan. So after that, and after his conversation now with Anna's parents, Alan also reported Anna missing, which, okay, super helpful after the office and her parents and basically everyone else everywhere already told the police that she was missing. Now you're doing it? It just didn't make sense. Now, setting that aside, the point was that at least now the police knew that Anna was missing, and they launched a new search right away. One of the first places where they looked for Anna was at her townhouse in Westchester. I mentioned it earlier because it was where she lived before she met Alan and moved in with him. Well, as it turns out, she never got rid of the townhouse. She still owned it all of these years later, after 11 years of marriage. And I know there's a lot of very normal, very valid reasons that she might have held onto that property. Maybe Anna wanted to keep it as an investment, maybe flip it later for more money. Maybe she and Alan just liked the idea of having a second home for getaways or whatnot. Who knows? But officially, she was using it for storage, which does make a certain amount of sense to me. If she and Alan had been renovating their main house for a long time, I can see how Anna would want a place to, store furniture and everything else so that it wouldn't get damaged during the upkeep and renovations and painting and everything else. But it's also reasonable to think, in my opinion, that if Anna and Alan's marriage was getting to be rocky, maybe she just wanted a place to get away and be on her own, away from him. So just in case this was one of those situations where Anna had actually run away from her husband and she didn't need rescuing or finding, maybe where she just kind of went so she didn't want to be found, the police knew they needed to go check out her townhome. And I will say for the record that I don't think that the police actually did believe that Anna had run away. She worked too hard and spent too much money on renovating the main house. And if she was going to go anywhere, she would have taken Andrew with her. She would have never abandoned her son. But still, you have to check. You have to be open to all of the different possibilities. But when the police went to the townhouse, they found nothing. Nada. Zilch. Anna wasn't there. And there also weren't any clues about where she might have gone. They also pulled her cell phone records, thinking that maybe the GPS might point them in the right direction. It might help them figure out where she had gone. Except the phone records said that Anna, or at least her phone, had never even left the main house where she lived with Alan. It had been there all day long. Now, Anna's family and friends were already worried before that information came to light. But when the police said that the phone was still in Anna's house, everybody was shook, just devastated. You know how it is. We all are attached to our phones at all times of day usually. So the fact that she was missing, but her phone was left behind, this was not a good sign. Because Anna was no different. Because everyone who knew her was basically like, she would not leave the house without her phone. Absolutely not. Even worse, there was some medication that she needed to take regularly. And Anna had left that behind at home too, which she would never do. So for her to be gone and for her to have left those things behind, something bad had to have happened to her. And they knew that it was probably very bad. Except one person in all of this was still acting like he just couldn't care less that Anna was gone, and maybe also in serious trouble. Her husband Alan was just so unbothered. Even Anna's friends thought that his behavior was just not right.
When Anna was missing at the time, I was at the house that week before Easter Sunday. I talked to the husband. I said, hey, listen, why don't we rent a billboard on Route 30 looking for Anna, her car information? He says to me, that's not a good idea. I'm like, what do you mean it's not a good idea? I said to him, well, how about we create a Facebook page? And he's like, what? I said, yeah. So I went home and created a Facebook page, and I said to him, are you willing to help me boost this Facebook page? He says, no, it's not a good idea. So I will use my own money in the beginning to boost the Facebook page.
So the searches kept going. Anna's parents flew to Pennsylvania from Poland to help with these searches, and this next detail is pretty wild to me. They were in Malvern for a week, and during that time, they stayed with Alan in his house, which, I mean, okay, sure, they probably didn't know anybody else in town, and if you're searching for a missing person, it makes sense to stay as close to home as possible in case they turn up. But given how suspicious Alan had been acting this whole time, I'd have to imagine that her parents weren't 100% certain that he was innocent in all of this and had nothing to do with Anna's disappearance. And I just can't imagine how that would feel. To be staying in the home of someone who, for all you know, might have kidnapped or hurt or even killed your precious daughter who's missing, that would be very unsettling. And the other frustrating thing about this week of searching was that there really weren't any clues to find. No matter how deep everybody dug, how carefully they combed through every inch of town, there was no sign of Anna. Nobody even knew what the next move should be. Now, I'm going to jump ahead to May of 2017 because that's how long it took before anyone had any kind of break in this case. Now, for context, nobody except Alan, allegedly, had heard from Anna since March 28th, but she had been reported missing on April 10th, and now it was May. So 1 to 2 months later, depending on what date you want to use as the day that she disappeared. And this break that finally came was that in May, Anna's car was found, but she wasn't in it. It was parked in a parking lot by a walking trail in Malvern. And this was not a lot where a lot of people tended to check up on their cars very often. It's not like there were workers or security officers who could say like, oh, that car has been there a little while, we should go check it out, or this feels weird. Nothing like that. It was literally impossible to say how long the car had been there. If it had been ditched recently, if maybe it's been there for a long time, maybe if there was a chance that Anna was safe and sound somewhere nearby and it had just recently been parked. There was no way to know if that was the case or if it had been there for months. This parking lot also was only about 2 miles away from Anna and Alan's home. So it's not like this car or whoever drove it traveled super far to get where it was found. Not at all. And I wish that I could tell you that the police searched the car top to bottom and found the key clue that broke everything wide open, but they didn't. I'm not sure exactly what they found in the car because they've been a little bit vague about what they've told the public. I know some of Anna's personal effects were in there, but I don't know much more than that. I also know that after Anna's car was found, the case pretty much went cold. There were no new discoveries afterward.
Our investigation has produced a number of valuable leads, but like with any case, in this case in particular, it relies heavily on assistance from members of the public. With that in mind, we are asking that anyone who believes they may have information related to this case to please contact the Pennsylvania State Police and provide us with that information. We are especially interested in the details involving Anna's activities over the previous 2 weeks before her reported disappearance. We would also like to remind everyone that no matter how minor the information they have may seem, it could still be a very key piece of information for our investigation, and we'd like to ensure that they contact us and provide us with that. We have obviously taken the car back here for processing and lab work, but at this time, nothing that we're able to release that was of importance for us.
So nothing indicates she could be a victim of foul play or anything like this?
Again, at this point, we have not ruled out any possibility of the cause for her disappearance.
Even with the police asking the public for tips, it took a really long time before they got any real breaks. And finally, about a year later, on May 7th, 2018, Anna's case was officially classified as a homicide. They hadn't found her body, they didn't know exactly what had happened to her, and it's not entirely clear to me why they made this change in the classification. Maybe they found some clue that they haven't spoken about publicly yet, I don't know, it's hard to say. But for whatever reason, they were now thinking that she was unfortunately deceased and that it wasn't an accident. They also said that they hadn't ruled out any suspects yet, but there was one person who they were treating as their top person of interest, and that was Alan.
Alan is a person of interest in this case. He has information that could help us with this case. Alan has not told us the truth. And again, we want Alan to come forward and talk to us.
You would like him to come here today?
We would like him to come here today.
Now, obviously, I think we're probably all on the same page. It's always the husband, it's always the wife, it's always the spouse. And here you have this guy who's like, I can't be bothered to report my wife is missing because I'm too busy. So the killer had to be him, right? That's what I'm sure everybody's thinking. And not only was it pretty suspicious that Alan was so completely unconcerned when Anna first went missing, but the whole timeline around her disappearance was weird. It was crazy. And by this time, most everyone agreed that Anna didn't send those text messages with the weird issues in Polish. Someone else must have most likely had her phone by March 30th when she sent that happy birthday message. And for context, this was about 12 days before Anna's coworkers and parents reported her missing. And then there were those 2 weeks where she wasn't at work, where her boss thought that she was in Poland and her parents thought that she was busy with her job. It seemed pretty likely to the police that Anna was probably killed somewhere in that window, because where else would she have been? And of course, if Anna was dead as early as March 30th, which was the day of that birthday text, or even the 28th when she talked to her parents last, Alan would have noticed. He would have obviously known if his wife, the mother of his child, wasn't safe and sound at home with him. Not to mention that the plan had been for Anna to take Andrew to Poland with her for the birthday trip. It's not like Alan missed the fact that she hadn't left the country. There's no way he just woke up one day, saw that she wasn't home, and just figured that, she was out on vacation and went to Poland, but left her son at home behind. And just thinking logically here, He had to know that Anna was missing pretty much from minute one. But he didn't make any kind of report to the authorities until after her coworkers and her parents were raising the alarm. Now, that being said, I do think it's worth noting that early on in the investigation, Alan was pretty cooperative with the police. Right after she was reported as missing, the police asked if they could search his house, and he consented. Unfortunately, the investigators didn't find anything in that search. But they did come back later, wanting to look around some more. And in fact, there were a bunch of times when the police asked Alan for permission to do a new search. But each time after that first time, he was like, no, I'm not talking to you. Talk to my lawyer. He lawyered up. And then he completely stopped cooperating after that first search, which, when you add in how he was acting right after Anna's disappearance, he basically was throwing up every red flag possible, right? He just looked so suspicious. Well, the police did eventually get a warrant to let them search Alan's house, lawyer or no lawyer. But it was locked up so well that they literally had to use a battering ram to break down the door so that they could get inside.
Police are searching the house of missing mother Anna Maciejewska for clues to her disappearance. It's happening on Hedgerow Lane. Chopper 3 over the scene right now. The 43-year-old disappeared after leaving for work on April 10th. No arrests have been made in the case. We, of course, will continue to follow this story.
Hi, Shari. Well, the police remain on the scene at this point in time. We don't know exactly what they are looking for as the search warrant is sealed. State police, detective, and forensic units arrived early today, armed with a sealed search warrant. This is the home of the missing woman, Anna Maciejewska, shared with her husband and now 4-year-old son.
Now, these search teams didn't find really anything, but I don't think that that says a lot. I mean, Anna had been missing since March or April at this point. This search was 3 or more months later. Again, depending on when you actually think that she disappeared. So if there was any evidence about what had happened to her in that home, Alan, or the real killer, if someone else is the real killer, they had a ton of time to completely get rid of evidence before a single police officer set foot inside that house. And the search was basically where the investigation stopped. The detectives didn't find anything, and they didn't know where to look next. Alan didn't get arrested. He also didn't get charged for anything, which brings us to now. It's been 7 years now, and there have been no new breaks. Anna's parents' health has been getting worse during this time, which I cannot even imagine the stress and the difficulty of having your daughter disappear and not knowing what happened to her. And the fact that her disappearance is still unsolved only has to add to that. And not that you ever want to root for someone to be dead, but at least there would be some closure or peace if somebody did find Anna's body. They could finally get some answers. If the police could find her remains, maybe they'd be able to tell something about her cause of death that would lead them to the killer. But ever since Anna's disappearance, her parents have been flying back and forth from Poland to Pennsylvania on a regular basis, trying to keep searching, keep Anna's name in the news, and make sure that her case doesn't get forgotten, even if it's cold. They've also given interviews saying that they're not giving up hope, even now, after so much time has passed. They're just hoping that Anna will still get justice.
Maybe I am naive and stupid, but still I have hope.
Now, we've got a lot to unpack here because, of course, a lot of people think that Alan did it. I don't think I need to rehash all of that again, all of the reasons that he comes across as just super suspicious. But the one big question about him, at least in my mind, is the motive. I mean, okay, so his relationship with Anna wasn't great. But from what I can tell, the issue wasn't that he was possessive or controlling, which is what you see a lot of the time in situations when husbands murder their wives. In fact, they had the opposite problem. Anna felt like Alan just didn't pay enough attention to her. So instead, so far as motive goes, the one explanation that I've been able to find in all of my research has to do with their son, Andrew. Specifically the fact that Anna wanted to get Andrew a passport so that she could take him to Poland with her whenever she wanted without having to deal with all of the red tape.
So I had dinner with Anna the end of January, and she did mention that she wanted to get her son a Polish passport, but her husband does not agree to it, and she was having difficulty with that.
Because she wanted dual citizenship? Okay. Was it intention to bring him to Poland? Or did you ever get that impression she wanted to go there and not come back?
No, not really. Just to get the passport. I didn't know what the intention was for it. but definitely her husband did not agree to it.
Now, I'm honestly not sure what to make of all of this. If Anna wasn't planning on taking Andrew away from Alan permanently or taking him back to Poland with her, then I just don't see a new passport being something that's worth killing over. And this is just speculation, so it could be wrong. I always say, do your own research. But, spitballing here, I wonder if Anna was planning to leave Alan and go back to Poland. Her friend said that she wouldn't do something like that, but I've got to say, if you're going to leave the country and take your kid with you, that's usually not the sort of thing that you're going to advertise to everybody that you know either.
We came up the elevator from the cafeteria, and she had tears in her eyes, and she was crying, and she said that she has met with this group of women that has made her stronger because she was going through a lot of stress. Now, at the time, I did not know she had a miscarriage. I didn't know she was having problems with her spouse. I just knew that whatever groups that she was with was giving her strength to go, like strength for herself. She wasn't a strong person. She was very kind, very, very kind-hearted, very lovable, would do anything for anybody. But to hear her say that this group of women that she was meeting with has given her strength meant a lot to her.
So again, just guessing, but maybe Alan was afraid that Anna was going to be out of his life forever. Maybe she had been growing, getting therapy, all of those things, and she was realizing that her marriage wasn't making her happy. And if that was the case, I could see Alan being terrified that Anna wasn't just going to leave, but that she was going to take their son with her. I mean, after all, we know their relationship wasn't great. We know that there was some jealousy around Andrew and around who was taking care of him and spending their time with him, all of those things. Now, whether it's true that she was planning to do that or not, maybe Alan decided that he just could not let Anna take that trip to Poland and take Andrew with her. He might have killed her because he thought that that was the only way he would be able to guarantee that his son would stay in his life. It wouldn't have been hard for him to murder her right before the trip either, especially when nobody was expecting her back at work for at least a week. He could have dumped her body and the car also that it would look like she wasn't home if anybody did happen to just do a drive-by and look in their driveway. And then he bought himself one more entire week before anybody else would notice because he might have been the one texting people from her phone, posing as her, asking for another week off. I don't know if Alan spoke any Polish or if he was any good at it, but I find it a lot easier to believe that he would make the kinds of mistakes that a non-native speaker would make rather than Anna. I don't know though. I'll also admit that there's not a ton of evidence that Anna actually wanted to leave Alan. There's a lot of speculation there, but none of it has been verified. It's hard for me to guess at what else the motive could be here, why Alan would do it, if he did do it. And I will say, he's never been arrested for anything related to Anna's disappearance or her murder. He's never been charged, and he certainly has never been convicted. So I think it's worth at least having an open mind, being open to the possibility that there's another explanation here, that Alan might actually be innocent. For example, there's an idea I've seen floating around out there, not saying that this is proven, it's just more guessing. But at one time, some people thought that Anna might have gone missing for reasons related to her mental health. Her friends and family members did confirm that she had issues with depression. So, did she leave her home on Monday morning in a rush, tell Alan it was because she needed to go to work, and then drive off to that hiking trail and harm herself in some way? I mean, I don't see how we can completely rule that out, at least not without a body and an autopsy. But I also will say, if Anna did take her own life, I still don't understand why Alan was so shady afterward, why he held off on reporting her missing until everybody else already did. I do think that it can be stressful and difficult for the police to search your house over and over again. It's hard to live your life and move on when a bunch of strangers are, tearing through your personal space looking for clues. So I don't totally hold it against Alan that he did hire a lawyer and stopped consenting to searches. And if Anna actually did disappear because of self-harm, it's fair and reasonable for her husband to want some privacy to grieve afterward. I get that. But the one thing that makes me pause a little with this theory is that the police did classify her death as a homicide. They still haven't publicly talked about why they did that, though, and what evidence they found that made them think that this was a murder. But even without having seen the evidence for myself, I do think that we can trust the investigators here because they obviously have their reasons for thinking that Anna might have been murdered. And whatever those reasons are, it's probably safe to say that she didn't die at her own hand. Now, the other thing is that most of those rumors I've seen about how Anna's depression may have been a factor, they're all from right after she went missing. It doesn't sound like anyone was seriously considering that she would hurt herself after that first week or two had gone by. It's so unlikely that her family has basically said that this theory is just impossible. It's not like Anna's personality. And I mean, listen to what her sister's husband said in his interview.
Not prone to wanting to just take off and go somewhere.
Never. I would never. I would say that's the last thing I would imagine.
Frankly, when I go into Reddit and all of the places, it seems like most people agree that Alan probably killed Anna. And since he hasn't been arrested or charged, that means he basically got away with it, right? At least so far. But lots of people are still asking questions.
We're trying to talk to you about the disappearance of your wife.
I'm sorry, I have no comment. Please turn the camera off.
It sounds like the police maybe think that he's guilty too, but I'm not sure why they aren't acting on what they know. The only way that this makes any sense to me personally is if it's one of those cases where they know who did it, but that they don't have enough evidence to go forward with an arrest yet. So maybe they're also trying to be slow and careful so that they don't scare him off, spook him, let him know that they're on to him. Maybe so that he doesn't leave town or flee the country or anything like that. Maybe they're just building a rock solid case. And I mean, unfortunately, I'm just speculating here, but that's because that's all I can do. And maybe one of the wildest things about this case is the fact that it's not much bigger news now. I mean, on paper, Anna's disappearance is the sort of thing that should have made headlines all across the United States. Just like Gabby Petito, Lacey Peterson, Hannah Kobayashi, all of these things. And if you were to go to Malvern and ask around, you'd realize that Anna is very locally well known. Her friends and loved ones have worked very hard putting up flyers, hosting events, raising awareness, and getting her face on the local news. But for whatever reason, she hasn't taken off as more of a national story, which I don't understand. The chief of the Greater Philadelphia Search and Rescue Team had a theory about why that was. He said, there's a hierarchy of missing persons cases, and while we would like to believe that we as a society treat everybody equally, we don't. We're not comfortable with names that we can't pronounce. Which, fair, because that's honest, even though it's not right. I think that is honest to a degree. But even if her last name isn't the most easy to pronounce, Anna still deserves justice. She still deserves for people to say her name and put her name in the spotlight and keep demanding answers, keep demanding a solution, and keep demanding that the police find and arrest her killer. And that's one of the reasons I'm covering her case today, because I do think that her story should be told, and we should be lifting Anna up in that way, trying to get answers. But maybe somebody out there knows something. Maybe you've seen something suspicious along the way. Maybe you have a tip to share. Maybe you heard something. And if that's true, and if you do have a tip for the police, please call the Pennsylvania State Police line, which is 610-486-6280. But even if you don't have any information or tips, I want to know what you think, and I do ask that you share this video. Share it in your group thread, on your social media, in your stories, on your Facebook, somewhere to get her story out there. And I want to know what you think. Do you think that Alan is responsible? Do you think that Anna's mental health was a factor? Or is there some other theory that nobody's even brought up yet? I'm happy to report that since 2018, her parents have had visitation rights for Andrew. Alan is still raising his son, but at least Anna's parents get to be a part of his life. It's obviously not the happiest ending to this story, but with unsolved cases, sometimes you gotta take what you can get. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you for hearing Anna's story today. Please don't forget, share this everywhere you can, and hopefully her family will get some answers, and hopefully Anna will get some justice. All right, until the next one, stay safe. Bye.